mystery morning or magical midnight, wherever, whenever you may be, across the dimensions or around the vibrations. I'm Tilly Treadwell, and oh, have I got a show for you. Won't you join us on The Weird Walk Home? Tilly Treadwell, and tonight I have with me a returning guest. This is Mr. Greg Ogles, and he has some pretty awesome stuff to share with us tonight. How are you tonight, Mr. Greg?
Doing very well, Tilly. Thank you for having me on again. It's a
Oh,
pleasure being here.
it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you back, sir. Thank you for joining me again, especially with the snowstorms, the ice storms you've got going on over there. Thank you very much.
It's been a mess. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really has. Here in the South, we don't get a lot of snow. We get a lot of ice. And I don't care how many chains you've got on your tires. It's tough to drive in the ice. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on here.
I bet. So, for people who may not know, could you please remind us where you're located right now?
Okay, well, I'm from Alabama. I live just north of Birmingham.
Mm.
And all of my crew so far is from Alabama, and we started out doing, just legends about Alabama, and it really has expanded from there. We've met people and we've ventured beyond the borders, and it's been a fantastic journey so far.
Oh, I bet. And you were talking about it expanding from there. That reminds me that you have some pretty cool things to share with us tonight. Would you like to give us an update?
Absolutely. For those that don't know, we put out this little film called The Legend of the Downy Booger, and it was streaming on several platforms for quite a while, for several months. And we just got word that all of the metrics met a situation where we were offered a DVD deal, and we're going to be in stores like Walmart and Best Buy, and it'll be on Amazon for the hard copies, and it's absolutely thrilling and really an honor. I consider it a great honor. This is our first film, and I come from literally knowing nothing about film, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a DVD deal, right? So uh, I am honored beyond measure and just blessed.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important to be proud of accomplishments like that, especially with the material that you are presenting
Mhm.
with this documentary.
Mhm.
Not a lot of people get to do this type of, you could even say, metaphysical work in a sense. So I
It
congratulate
is.
you on that.
Thank you. It
Yeah.
tells me that we're on the right track.
Yes.
One of the main premises that we wanted to work on was we wanted everything to be real.
Mm.
We don't stage anything or we don't fake anything. And really, honestly, we didn't have the budget to fake anything
I
in
believe
in
you
the
on that.
beginning. We
Oh,
really
yeah.
didn't have the budget. But I mean, we really didn't want to fake anything. We wanted everything to be real. So it took us a little longer to make the documentary than what it does to take normal films, because everything we that you see in it is absolutely real.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have activity every time we go out. I mean, if somebody says they're getting activity every time they go out, I mean, I have a trouble believing that, because most of the time, it's quiet for us. So it took us longer, for that and other various reasons to make our documentary. But now we know what we're doing, and we are on to another one.
That's just fantastic. I love that. Yeah, I must say to my friends in the audience, whether you're a new friend or a returning friend, I have seen clips of The Legend of Downy Booger, and I think it truly is phenomenal. It's down to earth. It's
Mm.
very well shot, in my opinion, and I think it contains a lot of great footage, whether it is of people talking about this or it's just field footage. I don't want to spoil anything though, so I'm trying to choose my words very carefully.
Mhm. Yeah,
But that is
yeah,
the story.
it is full of really good footage, and to be quite honest, after we started going out and filming for this documentary,
Mhm.
we really experienced a whole lot of weird things. And we didn't put nowhere near the amount of things in the film that we actually experienced
Yeah, you'd said.
because we purposefully stepped away from any other research or films or anything like that because we didn't want to be influenced by other people's experiences. We wanted to present what we were experiencing and we wanted it to be very real. So we were questioning whether some of the things that we were experiencing was actually real. And lo and behold, a lot of what we experienced has been corroborated by other researchers and other
Right.
people out in the field. And we're going to take that and run with it in this second film.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. Can you give us an example of what you doubted, but then you found evidence of later?
Okay. Oh, oh, absolutely. First were the orbs that we saw. Uh,
Mhm.
these things are so bright in the woods that they literally look like flashlights.
Yeah.
And at first, that we thought that's what we thought they were. And after some investigations, we found out that no, it's not. Flashlights. Um, so we actually shot one of those in the film, and you get to see something else that's in the film that's crawling between us and the orb. And I'll let people watch that later. But on a recent investigation that I just went on not long ago, we were in Bankhead Forest, and we had a rock thrown at us,
Mhm.
and kind of turn around, I kind of look, and a thermal image, I see something over in the woods, but it's a lot cooler than what I expected. So I'm
Mhm.
like, because it was really cold, but warmer than like a tree or whatever. So anyway, I pull up another camera. It was actually this camera right here. It's a full spectrum camera, and I'm able to see its eyes. So it kind of hides behind this tree that's fell over on its side, and I
Mhm.
start looking and I start zooming in on it, and I think, "Ah, dang, this thing is really weird."
Uh-huh.
Because you can see it move, and it's obviously kind of looking at us,
Yeah.
but you can't see anything but its eyes.
Uh-huh.
You can
Uh-huh.
see literally straight through whatever this is. So I was like, "Ooh, this is freaky." But I'm sitting here looking at it through the
Uh,
camera, right? And I look up, and you can't see it with your naked eyes, but you can
nope.
see it through this full spectrum camera. So
Right.
that's one of the things that's going to be in the upcoming film. That
Very nice.
Yeah, that's coming up. And before, if I had seen some of this, I would have doubted what I saw, you know.
Mhm.
But I've got this on camera, and it's stuck. When I mean by it stuck is it didn't malfunction. You would be surprised at the number of times you have electronic malfunctions when you're out
Yeah.
in the woods. And that was one of those various reasons why it took us so long the first time.
Oh, I bet. It sounds to me too like maybe the person or the being who threw the rock at you and the eyes that you saw,
Mhm.
maybe that person or being wanted you to see them for a little bit and to examine them for a little bit.
It very well could be. I
Yeah.
mean, after I turned around and saw it, it didn't flee. It was just kind of sitting there looking at us. And I literally watched it until it went away. I mean, you can see the eyes kind of peek down behind the log, and then it's gone and it never
Right.
returns. Um,
So
yeah.
did you see any, if you don't mind my curiosity anyways, did you see any temperature differential between the eyes and the rest of the, just for now, let's say body?
Um,
Were you able to get that information?
it was, I was able to get that information. It it wasn't what I expected. You know, I couldn't see the eyes on the thermal. So the
Mm,
thermal, it had no, it didn't read anything. But you could see a darker, when dark was hot, you could see a
mhm.
little bit of a darker image there. Um, but it's not what I expected. You know, when you turn, I compared it to Brent, who was my crewmate there, and there's no comparison. He was much darker. I mean, it's just, you know, he was what I expected to see from some
Yeah.
thing out in the woods. Even if it would have been a deer or any other animal, it would have shown a lot hotter. So I don't, you know, I don't know what this is. It's truly a mystery, and it's going in our film because
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's other things that I'm not telling you that happen. So you know, it's I'm going to keep the rest of it a secret, but I mean, those are just tidbits that are examples I would have questioned in the past. Other things, you know, disembodied voices, uh, you know, voices mimicking my own. That
Mhm,
happened quite a bit.
mhm.
And um, missing time. That's something that happened to us that
My.
it was really weird. I still don't believe it because, from my perspective, I didn't miss any time. But
Yeah,
from my buddy's perspective, we missed like 5 hours. So, yeah.
that's wild. All right. Well, now everyone knows they really need to keep an eye on these documentaries that you're putting out. And even me, I really need to watch them too and take some notes because I haven't been out in the field for quite a while now.
You know, here in the South, you can only go when it's cool. So we don't get out as much as I would
Mhm.
want. When we first started doing it, you know, we went out all the time. It didn't matter, you know,
Yeah.
until you know, we saw the chicks and the ticks and the chiggers and the snakes and you know, you carry audio out during May and there's
Yeah.
18 billion crickets and frogs and everything else that's alive in the woods and they're just going crazy. You can't hear
Mhm.
anything. And so there's definitely a season for this. And we're right now in the middle of it.
Oh, absolutely phenomenal, pun intended.
Hmm.
Well, I'm happy for you. When I was doing the field work myself, we didn't really go too far into the woods, and we were doing this work the whole year round. That's because we were up north. It was a
Hmm.
lot safer, and we didn't carry as much equipment as what you guys were. So it was just very different in that way.
Hmm.
Um, but I digress. I had asked you about the temperature differences between the eyes and the body because I had some very similar experiences when I was doing the footwork myself. So I even wrote about, well, I didn't write about my experiences directly. I wrote more about hypothesis in the upcoming book that I did with Tim Swartz, Zontar Press, and all of our friends over there. But the truth is that I do happen to maybe know a little bit more, and I would like to get some of your feedback on this and see if we can compare some notes if you're up for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. So I did my fair share of woods investigations, and I was, as I've explained a few times now, the intuitive co lead on the team. The rest of my team and the other co lead handled all of the equipment. And I had a few run ins with some non human beings or people who were, you could say, essentially guardians of the woods and the forest. They lived there permanently. They told me that they were there long before human people. And it was very interesting because I had worked with this crew for long enough at the point where this stuff started to happen, where they trusted me when I said, there is someone over there, I can see them, please point the camera that way, we have permission to film them.
Hmm.
And they got into the habit of bringing the thermal cameras out, especially because we kept finding some really cool anomalies. What we kept finding specifically, though, and maybe this is just an Ohio thing or like a Northern Forest thing, I don't know, but I want to find out so badly. The beings, the more they were coming into the physical, the warmer and hotter they would reflect on the camera. But the less physical to my eye that they were, the more ethereal they looked, the colder they looked, or they would barely show up. They might
Mhm,
show up as a chilly outline instead on the camera.
mhm,
So, what a lot of the times these non-human people would tell me, if they were friendly enough to really engage me in conversation, they would say that actually everywhere else outside of the 3D, there is either no temperature, it always just feels very comfortable, or it would be described as being very cold. That's how human people would describe it. And that when they start to manifest in here into the physical as we know it, that's when they start to gain both mass and heat.
mhm,
And so that this is why apparently um, they can have certain body parts showing up as being hot or really warm, or there's some kind of gradient. It's because they are manifesting and they have different levels of density, different vibratory levels at that point, and then that translates to different temperatures and masses.
mhm.
What do you think about that? You've
Well,
got some.
actually, it correlates with what we've seen both with our electronics and our eyes. And when we were filming Booger on our last investigation, we saw this entity crawling down a hill, and it had a very definitive heat signature.
Mhm.
And it got to a log, and it pushed up on a log, and then it went kind of went back down. And when it pushed up, you could see its arms and everything. So we thought we had this fantastic footage of maybe a Bigfoot that was crawling up on us or something. And
Sure.
all of a sudden it disappeared from FLIR. Just boom,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
gone. Okay. That very same night, we captured something crawling between us and this orb, but we
Mhm.
couldn't see it with our eyes. But the camera sure saw it. Yeah, the camera saw
Yeah.
it. And it tried to focus on it for a few seconds, and it eventually gives up and goes to focus back up on the orb. So that's one example of what has happened to us out in the field. The other one was just this example that I was just talking about with the eyes. I mean, with my full spectrum camera here, I could see the eyes, and what I thought maybe could be an outline of something, but you could essentially see through what is there, whatever is there. And it also had a much cooler temperature than what I had expected. But I knew
Mhm.
something was there. You know what I mean? I
Of
mean,
course.
you could see it with this camera, and throw a rock at us or something did. Uh,
Sure.
So perhaps whatever I was looking at was not quite in our 3D, not quite in our vibrational realm yet, or
Mhm.
or it was going in or out or something. And the more, if I'm understanding you correctly, the more it's not in our physical world, the cooler it would appear on thermal.
That is
So
correct. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so that's exactly what happened to us, and what's going to be in our upcoming film.
Fantastic. Well, it's
Mhm.
good to know that the information that I was given is being proven now true. Some people, I would try to tell them what these non-human people were telling me, and it just sounds like I'm speaking gibberish to them. But I think that all of this is incredibly scientific, and I think that it just gets more into the quantum realm, and that most human people, they don't have the ability to understand this yet, not because they're stupid or anything, but because it's just not talked about, and it's only just recently being studied more commonly.
Well, like I said, I mean, we encountered that early, um, but it was
Mhm.
so fantastic. We didn't think the audience would believe it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
we were seriously deliberated on some of this. We're like, man, this happened to us. If we're going to be reporting what happened to us, we should report this.
precisely.
But it was
Yeah.
so fantastic. I mean, if we had to, let's say, if we're viewers, we would be like, I don't believe that at all. So
Sure.
we just elected not to put that in our first film until
Sure.
we at least started to, quantify and verify some of our findings.
I think that's a really wise decision for you to make. And to be honest, the pressure of the public not believing someone, that can be a lot of pressure. I
Mm.
still face that with some of the stuff that I'm talking about as well. And if you ever need anyone to back you up on what you're saying, I completely have your back. I understand what you're getting at, and I do fully believe that it's real. The Catholic Church strongly encouraged us not to talk about the things that we were finding out in the field. And about halfway through my time there, I was asked to come in and meet with the father because although everything that I was saying was being verified for the vast most part right there on the spot, and they had the video evidence, they had recordings, and everything, the father said to me and to my co lead that we have to, for the sake of um, public sanity, not talk to anyone about the things that I was being told, I was seeing, that we were recording, the scientific developments that we were making because people wouldn't be able to handle it. And
Mhm.
that pressure was really immense. So
Mhm.
I'm right there with you, brother.
Yeah. Um, Fortunately for us, we didn't have any of that pressure because we deliberately stayed
Mm,
away from any type of social media or anything. Nobody had heard of us until we put the film out. So, once you put the film out, you sort of the
I love
cat's out of
that.
the bag. So,
Yeah.
then then that's when you want to go out on the circuit and market, and you want to share your findings and things like that. Uh, with us, I mean, we've finally come to the conclusion, or at least I have, that I don't want to try to prove anything. My goal is not to prove anything. My goal is to share our experiences and to make it entertaining and fun, and to uh, let the viewer make up their own mind
I
as to
love
what they're
that.
seeing.
Yeah.
That's our goal. But let the viewer know, though, everything we show is true, and
Yes.
it may have a different interpretation, but it's true.
Amen. I like that very much. So this can get us into the brand new jellyfish UAP subject.
Mhm.
What in the world do you make of that video, that now viral video?
Oh my gosh, that thing is so weird. You know, um, Corbell, he just puts out some of the weirdest stuff, that kid. You know, it's just floating through the air. It's hot 1 second, it's cold the next, and then just going back and forth. And it looks like Maximilian from the black hole. It's just weird and scary. I'm like, hey, what is this thing?
Uh-huh.
He mentions that you can see it on FLIR. Okay,
Mhm,
it's very difficult to hide from FLIR.
mhm.
Uh, but he also mentions that you could not see it on night vision, which means it's cloaked. If they're trying to see it on night vision and you can't, it's
Yep.
cloaked.
Mhm,
That's what that means. That's what he's saying without saying it. Okay. So, and imagine at some point it decloaks, but because he mentioned something that it has like scales of some sort that kind of maybe it's armor or tiles or something that's on it.
mhm,
Uh, but it's just weird, you know?
mhm,
Uh, but the thing that's just that kind of captivates me is it's cloaked,
mhm.
because it passes by, people walking, they don't see it.
Yeah,
Uh, the thermal radar or the thermal targeting system tries to lock onto it, it can't. So it's doing something that our technology can't keep up with. And,
sure.
and it's just doing its own thing, just scooting along, just do 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 do. Um, I don't know. This thing's just weird, you know.
Oh,
Uh, it's weird. It's ugly. If I saw it, I'd freak out because
aw.
when I was a kid, I watched The Black Hole and Maximilian just scared me to death. It was,
Oh,
it was he's an evil robot.
yeah, I could see why then. Oh my goodness.
So,
So I I think that there are a lot of people and beings like that here, or I think that they are right there in what we would consider the pre-physical. I think that they are right behind the veil all the
mhm,
time, but that they still interact with and reside here in some ways. That's at least
mhm,
my understanding.
mhm.
And I think that this is why you're getting all of the temperature fluctuations and um, the cloaking. People here always call it cloaking, but that's not my understanding or experience all the time. From what I
Right.
understand,
Yeah, I
some
mean, you could be phasing, you know.
yes, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if they're right behind the veil, they're not going to show up on some types of cameras, but they'll show up on other
that's right.
types.
That's
That's
right.
my understanding anyway. So you agree with me, see?
I absolutely. I was trying to use a colloquial term, that people would generally understand. When you get into phasing, then you get into metaphysical talk, and
Correct.
you know, uh, not everybody might, understand that. So I was just using a colloquial term that could apply, you know, that people could understand.
I completely agree with you, and I do understand and agree with the social context. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, something that we had talked about was the crossover between temperature and then mineral content. Could you please
Mhm.
tell us a story about that and your
Well,
theory?
okay. Yeah. Well, we do have a hypothesis that when it's cold, a little bit colder outside, and when there is more medium, which means humidity, fog, whatever, uh, and when there is an abundance of quartz in the ground, we've had more activity in those locations under those conditions than we would say in a dry desert place, with a bunch of silicon. so,
I chuckle because you just hit it right on the head. I literally wrote about that exact thing in the book coming out here in 2024.
wow.
Exactly what you just said. Exactly that.
Well, and I'll tell you some of the things that we've experienced. Um,
Yes.
okay, number one, I never believed in ghosts until I saw one, or what people would refer to as a ghost. I don't know what I saw, but I'll tell you what I saw. I saw an Indian on a horse manifest in the middle of the field, and it rode through the field and it got to the tree line and it disappeared. Well, it was on a really foggy night that night, and temperature wasn't real cold, but it was cool. And there's lots of quartz in this area, right? So we've had all kinds of activities in this particular area. Another place in the Talladega National Forest in Alabama, I saw my first shadow, what I consider a shadow person. You know, I didn't know what to think of it. This little joker just, was took out across the field, and it wasn't like it was a full bipedal humanoid like, but it was sort of something in between. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. You could tell it was a person, but it wasn't a full person, if that makes any sense. You could see through it, and some parts was more darker than others, and I don't know, it was just weird. And my buddy saw one, and I'm not going to talk about it until the film number two comes out. But it scared him so bad he will not go back to the same place. He will not go back to the metal. Yes, it scared him because he had never.
Oh,
I think it was probably a shadow person he saw. Uh,
okay.
he thinks it was a demon, but I have my own perspective on demons, and I think it was probably just a shadow person, you know.
Sure. Yeah,
But if you've never seen one before, it freaks you out,
actually. Oh, yeah. Mhm.
especially in the context that that it happened. And yeah, so
Aw.
some really weird things happened on that investigation there. And it's really exciting, and I'm going to be recording um, a teaser trailer pretty soon. So that's
Ooh.
going to come out in a few weeks.
Oh my.
Yes, it's not going to have everything. It's just going to be a little teaser about some of the stuff that we've had, and I'm really excited about this one because some of the physical evidence, when I say physical evidence, video footage and
Yeah.
everything else, far exceeds what we had in Booger. So, yeah, it far exceeds it. I'm so excited about this one, and a lot of the guests that we have are up and coming stars in the field. You know,
Yeah.
and they're great people. Love working with them. Um, but it's not finished, but it's really close. Really close to being finished. But anyway, yeah. Um, I sort of got off track somewhere.
Yeah. But that's okay. I figured I would just let you ramble. It's perfectly all
Yeah,
right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right, darling. I wanted to ask you about the overlap between temperature or
Yes,
temperatures and mineral content.
yes. Okay. The mineral content, like quartz,
Yes.
where there's lots and lots and lots of quartz in the areas where we've seen more of the orbs and
Mhm.
more of these shadow people, and really just paranormal activity in general. And what I mean by paranormal, I mean anything from Bigfoot to um, ghosts to everything. Okay. Um, the temperature, when it's really, really hot, we haven't had we haven't really had the experiences.
Mhm.
When it's cooler out, we've had those experiences. And I don't know the relationship between the temperature and the minerals, but there's some sort of relationship there that uh, it's an inverse relationship where the cooler the temperature gets, the more activity you're going to have. But at some point, it kind of cuts off when it gets really, really cold.
Yes.
Um, I found that that the activity kind of stops, and kind of halts some. So there's a happy point in there, like I would say some in the 40s, in the 40 degrees range. That's prime for activity.
Mhm. I agree. I completely agree.
Mhm.
Um, that lines up almost essentially with what I've experienced and been told too. I find that interesting. Um, oh gosh. I have a lot of examples that I could give. I'm going to try to summarize it as best as I can. So, I've had a lot of different types of non-human people during all of my investigations. They've all told me some type of version of exactly what you've just said.
Yeah.
But they also factor in humidity. So
Yes.
apparently,
Yes.
certain types of non-human people have certain genetics, even though they are lighter in vibration and lighter in density than human genetics. They have specific criteria that they need in order to cross the veil into
Mhm.
this more physical realm.
Mhm.
And so a good example could be the jinn. So the jinn are often called shadow people. They can be called demons. I they do appear as shadows sometimes. I will say that. I don't think that they're demons at all. I think that they're actually pretty close to human people in temperament and morality in some ways, and I think that that's why there is conflict and competition, but I don't call them demons at all. I don't think that.
Yeah.
Um, but they had explained to me that when they manifest genetically, it is best for them to come through over in more, I believe it's called arid atmospheres, arid climates, and especially sand. For them, apparently, sand is big in helping them manifest and cross over, as well as extreme heat and either very, very dry air or very, very moist air. Apparently, there's no middle ground for these guys. So they said that they can go anywhere here in the physical realm and hide right behind the veil, but they won't be detectable for human people. And they mostly won't even show up on camera because they're not in the physical yet. They're right there at the pre physical, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I mean,
Cool.
when I saw that ghost, it was in a very foggy night.
Yeah,
Very, very foggy. So there was lots of humidity.
yeah. And I've had other types of non-human people explain to me as well that mineral content and type,
Mhm.
humidity, weather, and temperature are all extremely important for most of them to be able to manifest here.
Mhm.
And so there are, from what I'm understanding, several types of vibrations. Maybe this will line up too with some of the stuff you've experienced. So we have us here on the 3D essentially, and then we have the 3.5D, which is where the Fae people who are essentially like the elementals,
Mhm.
that's where they reside apparently, and they can manifest a lot more easily into the direct physical. And then we have the 4D, which is apparently where the jinn reside. And so I think that a lot of these manifestations out in the woods or in houses that are right by the woods, I think a lot of these are essentially elemental spirits or other types of fairy spirits who are already living here with us just naturally. But what do you think about all of that?
I had surmised the exact same thing with
Oh,
uh,
okay.
with my crewmate Brent. I
Oh,
said, "Yeah," I said, "Hey Brent, I think a lot of these orbs that we're seeing and they're interacting with us. I think they could be elementals." You know? And he's like, "Oh no, if they are, I mean they're evil, they're demons." Well, I'm like, "Oh, Brent, everything's a demon with you, bud."
dude.
Well, bless his heart. He means well. He comes around eventually. He
Bless
does.
his heart.
Bless his
Okay.
heart. Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I love Brett. He's a really good guy. He's just some people just have a harder time accepting um
Nuance.
change.
Okay, change.
Change. Things that are different than what we were told as kids and generations ago, you know. So I had to come around to that conclusion myself. When I was seeing these things. But yeah, I think some entities have an easier time crossing over into the 3D than others, than. perhaps the jinn, or
Mhm.
um, like our spirit guides or whatever, whatever dimension they may be in. I think that I think there's a range of entities that live in the universe. Just they're just on the spectrum. I mean, the entire spectrum, of entities. And I think in the past we've experienced them, and they just didn't know what else to call them. They're like, they didn't know about vibrations, and they didn't know about the frequency range and all this other stuff that is scientific at the time. So they just, ooh, it's a demon,
I agree.
yeah.
I
So
agree. Okay. I think that's perfectly fair, and we'll have mercy on your friend. It's all good.
he comes around. He'll come around.
Awesome. But Valentine's Day is quickly approaching, and we're
Mhm.
talking about all these vibrations and all these different types of peoples, and it may seem like a complete topic change. I promise it isn't. I want to know what you think about the possibility or the idea of intervibrational mating and or marrying.
Okay. If I think it's happened. Um, I think if you read the Bible from a certain lens,
Mhm,
you could see that that's happened before.
mhm,
Jesus, he was supposedly the offspring of a very high dimensional being with a lowly dimensional 3D woman, and all of the other quote, sons of God that loved women and mated with them, and they made giants. And you know from a certain lens, you could say that that's happened before.
mhm.
And uh, I don't see where it would be impossible. I mean, everything's possible, you know? Yeah,
According to
apparent.
multiple world theory, yeah.
Yeah, you know. So if I've learned anything in this business, I've learned to never say never.
Ah, I
Never say
like it.
never. Yes, never say never. Um, yeah, I think if they can interact with you, if they can, open cabinets, doors, take covers off, then at some point they can get physical. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
They can be physical in our realm.
mhm.
Do they have sexual urges, like we do? D- Don't know, you know? That would be something for somebody else to study. I don't make those kind of films.
Fair enough. Oh man, I have been relayed a little bit of information about this type of topic, and
Mhm.
it apparently varies person to person, and you could say species to species. And apparently, when in the right environment, not only can these non-human people come here, but they can indeed have full lives and relationships with compatible human people, as long as all of the nutrition, the vibration, the relationship, the morals, the society, and then of course the climate and the mineral content are right. And I was told by non-human sources that I fully believe that this did used to happen until around the time, for the most part, of the last industrial revolution. And so I was told that there are straight up jinn and you could say fairy and alien hybrids amongst the human population due to those ancestors being able to come in, manifest fully, live amongst the humans, and pose as human people enough to pass, but then they also could manifest the proper biology because
Mhm.
their genetics were already compatible enough to hold that framework, if that makes sense. What do you think,
Yeah,
though?
there's ancient writings about it. I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter which culture that you go
yeah,
to, there's ancient writings and stories about it. It's in all cultures.
it
So
is.
not
Really.
only Christian, it's in the old Indian ones, it's in the old Celtic ones. It's all over the world about uh, the spirit world and the our world being able to mate. So yeah, it's all over. So I believe that it happened absolutely.
And interesting too, a lot of these tales say that the supernatural spouse tends to have especially cold skin. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. Oh, I was just hoping it wasn't a potential spouse coming after me in the woods the other day.
Ah, you're already committed, good sir.
I sure am.
Aw. Well, my dear, I'm afraid that we are out of time for now, but thank you so very much for joining me. And I know that we've talked a lot about your work recently and then upcoming work, but I and we just can't get enough. Where can we find you online, dear?
Well, you can find me personally on Facebook, just Greg Ogles, and you can keep up with Relic Films on Relic Films on Facebook and relicfilms.net. And you can find our films on Tubi, and in a few months, you'll be able to order physical copies and be able to buy physical copies.
Yay for that, for physical copies. I think we
Yay.
need more of those.
Mm.
All right, everyone. Thank you very, very much for joining us, Greg. It has been a great honor and pleasure to have you back. I can't wait to have another riveting conversation with you soon. Do you have any last parting words?
Just be happy, treat everybody well.
I like that. I think that's a great note to end on. So, my friends, we've learned that condensation in the air, mineral content, temperature, those are all really important. We've learned about maybe gradient vibrations,
Mm.
dimensions, and maybe we still have hybrids living amongst us. You never know. Until next time, everyone, I wish you a very merry morning or a magical midnight. I have been Tilly Tradwell. That's Greg Ogles.